What was that magic word again? Oh my goodness, is it bibbidi bobbidi boo? No, that didn't work. How about abracadabra? No, that's not working either. What is the magic word? Oh my goodness, it's got to be something simple. I know, I think I remember what it is. Let the creative magic begin. Well, hello friends, welcome back. It is so good to see all of you. I'm excited to spend some time together today. We are going to be creating some really fun, magical Halloween pieces, Halloween decor pieces today. These are fun, they're whimsical, they're delightful, because you know, y'all, I don't really care for spooky things too horribly much. So I just put together some really fun designs that can go with all of your fun Halloween decor, whether you like the spooky or whether you just like cute and whimsy. I think I have something fun for you today. So come on, let's head into the studio and let the magic begin. Our first project today is a really darling little design. It's a spin off of ghosts and pumpkins. I think y'all are going to enjoy this one, so let's get to it. For this magical brew, we are going to be working with some air dry clay and a pumpkin. I have started out here by rolling my air dry clay to a fairly large circle. Now the size of your circle here is going to depend on the size of your pumpkin. You want this clay to be sized so that it can drape pretty far over your pumpkin, because if you haven't guessed by now, we're making a cute little pumpkin ghost. And our air dry clay is going to act as our ghost sheet, if you will. So you do want this to be a fairly large. I do think this design would be absolutely darling with a really tall, skinny pumpkin. However, I just wanted to use what was in my stash and I didn't have a tall one, so we're going to be using this little short round guy for this particular design, which I think is going to be fine. I think it will turn out darling. You do want to roll your clay out fairly thick. I rolled mine to 1/2 inch, and I used my magic rolling pin to do this so that I could be sure and get a precise measurement on the thickness of my roll out. And I will have my rolling pin that I love so much for this particular purpose linked in our supply list for y'all. All right, so once you get your clay draped over your pumpkin, you are going to just start molding this and shaping it around the pumpkin. Now I did want, because I want this to resemble like, you know, the sheet of a ghost, and so I wanted to have lots of folds and wrinkles in this. So I just worked around the bottom to create all those little wrinkles, and now I'm at the point where I want to start getting some of the imperfections out of the clay, like some fingerprints, or if you have fingernails, you might get a nail print in there. So to do this step, I'm just using some warm water. The warm water works really well for this particular purpose because it helps create, it helps make the clay a lot more pliable, and it also acts as almost like a glue, and it just sort of magically disappears all of our imperfections in the clay. Then after I did that, I did come across and worked all of the grooves into the pumpkin because I did want those pumpkin sections to be fairly defined in the top of our sheet. That's what I'm going to keep calling it. And now I'm working on the bottom, just getting all of those rough edges smoothed out. It is really good to make sure that you are using water to do this, but you also want to be careful not to use too much water, because if the clay gets too wet, it will start to disintegrate, and we do not want that to happen. So I'm just going to keep working this pumpkin until I get it exactly where I want it. Once I've done that, we'll go ahead and re-add the stem into this. I did just poke the stem in, and once the clay completely set, I glued the stem down. Now we need to add in our ghosty eyes. So to do this, I'm going to start out by just drawing them, and I'm just using one of my clay tools. It's like a stylus, but it's got a pretty sharp point on it, and I will have these clay tools linked in the description box for y'all. They did come in really handy for this particular project. I don't always recommend, going out and spending money on these types of tools, but every once in a while they do come in handy and make a job a little bit easier. So I drew out the shape of my eyes with this, and then I'm going to come in with this Feautring. Now, I don't know the names of any of these clay tools. I just know that I have them and they have come in handy. So this one's got a little bit of a flat curved, and I was able to come into my my outline that I did on this, and then sort of push all the clay in from that outline. And then I'm going to go ahead and just define my outline a little bit more, and then scrape all that excess clay out of there. The reason I did it this way is because I didn't want to run the risk of tearing anything that was, unnecessary to tear out of here. So I made sure I really had the markings for the eyes very clearly cut and defined. And then I just used this tool to scrape all that excess clay away from the eyes. And of course, to smooth out my edges, after we cut away all that excess clay, to smooth out the edges, I'm just using my finger with a little bit of water, and it just smooths everything out so magically. It's beautiful. And with a little extra magic just like that, our clay is completely set and dry. But little secret, it did take about 3 to 4 days for this to completely set. I think I actually left it for 4 days and let it completely set and cure. You do want to make sure that your clay is fully set before moving on to this next step. So I did, after it set, I did get a few little tiny cracks in this, and to eliminate the cracks, I just filled them in with a little bit of drywall mud, let that set. It only took about 3 hours for that to set. So now I'm just coming in and sanding away some of that excess drywall mud just to give me a smooth surface. Now, y'all, I know ghosts are white, right? However, I'm not a huge fan of stark white. So I did want to come in and give these just a teeny tiny little bit of color. So to do this, but I wanted to maintain that, white appearance. So to do this, I'm just using some antique white. This is the Folk Art brand craft paint in the color, I believe it actually was called parchment white or antique white. I think there's both. I think Folk Art has both colors. So I don't remember exactly which one I used here. It was either the parchment white or the antique white. Anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and cover this entire thing with just one single coat of this paint, and then we'll go ahead and move on to our next magical step. Because I only used one coat of paint on this, it did dry really, really fast. And you can see that it didn't really take away the integrity of the white as much. You can see the one on the right over there is unpainted, and so there's really not a whole lot of difference. I just feel like it took away a little bit of that in your face stark white. All right, y'all, so you know me, I have to just keep going at this point. This step is completely optional because, to be perfectly honest, this ghost pumpkin looks wonderful the way it is, but I just can't help myself. So I decided to come in and add a few highlights and lowlights to this. And so to do so, the first coat that I put on, I'm using just a slightly darker color to do this, and I do wet brush it on, and then I come in with a dry brush to blend it all out. Our ghost pumpkin is looking super, super, super cute at this point. I actually love these little fellas. Does it get any cuter than this, y'all? Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and repeat that same exact process of doing the highlights and the lowlights to my second pumpkin really quick. And just like that, we are all done. Don't y'all just love magic? So now it's time to go ahead and paint in the eyes. So to do this, I am using a rounded brush. I do recommend using using a round brush, but if you don't have one, don't fret. Just use the smallest brush that you have to paint in the eyes. And of course, I'm just simply painting these in with black, and I'm just going to paint right into the, you know, the the wiped out section that we did, or the cleaned out section, the cut out section, the eye socket section. There we go. I'm just going to go ahead and paint that in really quickly. Okay, so I said I was going to do that really quickly, but I think my magic wand broke right here, and we didn't go into fast mode just yet. So I don't know what to say right now, except for have fun with this whole step and enjoy painting in the eyes. I think painting these in is what's going to bring these cute little pumpkin ghosts to life. It gives them so much character and personality. So the shapes of the eyes is something to also think about when doing this, because the shapes are what is going to give these little fellas so much character and so much personality. All right, my magic wand is working again, and now we are kicked into high speed. Let's finish painting these eyes, shall we? What is there to say about this cuteness, y'all? This is cuteness factor at its very best. I absolutely love how these sweet little pumpkin ghosts turned out. For our next creative potion, we are going to create some really darling Halloween art. Now, y'all, this isn't your typical art. You don't even have to have hardly any supplies to do this. We're going to just use an acrylic marker pen and some art pieces that I'm going to have available for y'all as free printables. And then we're going to do some super fun things to these. We're going to whip up lots of magic to make these the most spectacular and magical art pieces for your Halloween decor. So here we go. It is absolutely no secret that I love art so very much. But art is not just painting on a canvas or watercolor. Art is so many things. Like, I feel like everything we do on my channel can be considered art. Our little pumpkin ghosts are considered art to me. So art is one of those words that is relative, right? It takes on so much meaning. So when I say art, I hope it doesn't scare y'all away, because I don't always mean that we're going to sit down with paint and paint brushes and create this magnificent Picasso's type thing on canvas, because we're not. We're just creating some really fun, unique pieces here. And this piece is no exception. It's very, very, very easy. So as I said, I'm going to have these particular printables available for y'all as a free download, as well as these little ghosty shapes. So all I did here was print this pretty little barn print onto some watercolor paper, and then I cut out my little ghost stencils on my Cricut cutter. Now, I intentionally had meant for these to be stencils, but I cut them out in the reverse, or when I did my weeding, I cut it out or weeded in the reverse, and so I messed everything up, but that's okay because it still worked perfect. I could just trace them on. So my intent here was to make these cute little ghosts that I'm doing on this particular piece look like cute little sheets hanging from a clothesline in front of this barn. It didn't work out exactly the way I had envisioned it and intended for it. They sort of looked like they were still floating, even though I did try to draw in a clothesline. So I did do another variation of this exact same thing, which you will see in the final looks. So to color our ghosts in, I am just using my Helloooooo acrylic markers, acrylic paint markers. I like to use these acrylic ones because they are a little bit translucent, so you can still see the art behind the ghosts. You could also use some gouache to do this. Gouache is another medium that is semi-translucent, and you can see a little bit behind it. And then of course, after my ghosts were all colored in and painted in, which you saw went really, really fast, it's time to just come in and do the eyes. And then
as fast as I possibly can, we're going to add it into this frame. I can't even talk that fast. Okay, so I've added it into the frame, and I just picked up this gold frame at Walmart. It was just an inexpensive frame, but I think the results are super, super cute. I love it.
For our next project, we are going to be playing with one of my favorite mediums. Y'all have seen me use this so many times before, and I really think that this medium in and of itself is full of magic. So y'all, let's go whip up our next project.
Yep. You may have guessed it already, but we're working with some air dry clay again. So you'll need some air dry clay, a cute little frame, and this darling little ghost that I will have available for y'all as a free printable. Most of the supplies that I am using, well, actually, all the supplies that I'm using today will be listed in our supply list, and I will also have a complete bundle, a free printable bundle for y'all, and the link is in the description box, so be on the lookout for that. Okay, now again, we're going to create this cute little ghost. So this is my magic rolling pin. Y'all, this thing is amazing. So this rolling pin gives you the ability to change the size of or the depth of what you're rolling out. So for this particular one, and each one of the little discs are marked. With this one, I cut this to 1/2 inch, just like we did with our ghost pumpkins, because I wanted this to be pretty thick, not super thick, but thick enough, right? Thick enough that it's not going to disintegrate and fall apart as we are working it. So I rolled it out to the shape of my little ghosty here. And then I'm just going to come in with my X-Acto knife and trace all the way around the outer edge of this. Super simple process and straightforward. Nothing really complicated about this at all. Pattern is now cut out from the clay, so I'm going to go ahead and just pull all of the excess clay away from our little ghosty here. And then with my excess clay, I do ball it up, and make sure you keep this because this is valuable product here. So I just ball it up and then put it in an airtight Ziploc. And then I'm just taking some water and going around and smoothing out all of the edges of my clay. All right, so with the stylus, I'm going to come in and go ahead and draw in the folds. On the pattern, you can see the little folds of our ghosty sheet here. So I'm going to take my stylus, draw those in, and then we're going to go ahead and mold these in with some extra clay. Okay, y'all, so anytime you're working with air dry clay and you want to add to your piece, it's really important to do two things. First, you want to wet it down. And then second, we're going to go ahead and just roll out a tiny little piece of clay here, you know, just kind of in a worm shape. You don't want it to be too thin though, and you want to roll it out a little extra long, longer than you think you're going to need so that we can cut away the excess. So once I've done that, got through my little clumsy spell there, I'm going to go ahead and just attach this right to our drawing, like the outline that we just did. But step 2 to attaching clay to clay, you want to rough up the surface a little bit. You want to get it wet, and then you want to rough it up a little bit. So I rough up the surface on the actual ghost itself, and I'm also going to rough up my surface on this little wormy looking thing. It won't look like a worm when we're done, I promise. But this is called cross hatching, and it's very important because this is what helps the clay attach to itself. So I re-wetted a little bit just to make sure it was plenty wet. And then I'm going to go ahead and just drop this right onto my initial drawing. So this is going to be what's going to give us the fold. We want to have a lot of dimension to this, and this is going to give us that fold in our little ghosty sheet. So the first thing I do is just start working it in with my fingers, press it in really good, and then I take this little tool and go around all the edges to make sure it's pressed super tightly into the base of our clay base, and then I just use my finger and some water to mold it and shape it, and I do that for all the folds in our little ghosty sheet here. So my folds are all well blended into our little ghost. He's looking really, really good here. And so now I'm just going to come in and clean up all of the edges, because, you know, as you're working with this, sometimes your edges get a little rough, your ghost might get misshapen. So if you need to, take your original pattern and place it back over the top of the ghost to just reshape it if you have to. So I think the folds in our little sheet ghost is looking really, really good here. So I'm just going to use my finger with a little bit of water to smooth everything out. And then with our magic wand, I'm going to dry this really super fast. Okay, our clay is completely set. It's fully dry. Secret here, it took about 2 days. This is a pretty thin little ghost, so it didn't take a very long time to set up. I always tend to leave mine a little extra just to make sure that it is fully cured and fully set. And just like with our pumpkin ghost, I want to change the color of this a little bit from that stark white to just a little bit of that off-white. So I used the same exact color to do this. And now I'm drawing in the eyes. And then with a really small detail brush, I will go ahead and paint those eyes in with some black paint. While I think this sweet little ghost is darling just the way it is, I think we need to add a few embellishments. What do y'all think? I mean, you know, you can never go wrong with embellishments. So I've tied a couple of jute bows, and I'm going to just hot glue them right to the top to make it look like our little ghosty girl. This is a ghosty girl, by the way. So to make her look like she's just got a cute little ribbon in her hair, if she had hair, right? So and I wanted this to be a double bow. So I did 2 of this. So I tied one bow bigger, and then this bow just a slightly bit smaller than that under bow. And I just lay them right on top of one another. And I do want this to have some cute little tail ends, but I'm going to cut the tail ends of that top bow, the smaller bow, and then leave the under bow with some little longer tails, because I just think those tails are super, super cute. And then I'm just going to go ahead and add some embellishments to this. I've just got some itty bitty flowers and some pith berries, and I'm just going to have fun embellishing. So you just embellish this to your desire and with whatever you have on hand. I think the important thing is to keep it at a small scale, because this ghost is a little bit small. Oh my gosh, I cannot say how cute I think she is. I love this, y'all. It's such a simple thing, but the simplicity of this has huge, ginormous, magical cuteness to it, don't you think? So to attach my ghost to my frame, so I have a printed floral piece inside the frame, but I don't want the ghost under the glass. I want it to sit on top of the glass just to give it a little depth. So to do this, I'm just going to use some command strips, because I think this is going to be the easiest way and the less permanent way, so that I can reuse this frame for future projects. And so I just used command strips. Just be careful when you're pressing the command strips on not to break your glass. And y'all, okay, the cuteness, again, cuteness factor alert here. This is so darn cute. I love how this little ghosty girl turned out. I think she is just so sweet.
And last, but certainly not least, our last project for today is just something cute, whimsical, and kind of playful, and super easy to put together. So let's go see what our magic wand can create this time.
I think we need a couple of brooms to go with all of our Halloween decor, don't y'all? I mean, come on, brooms are a little bit iconic, but we can make some cute ones. So I have these cute little, what are these called? Spindles. Some spindles that I had in my craft stash. I did cut the top off of one of these, but kept the bottom part so that we can attach our jute to. So to make the little broom part, I am going to just be simply attaching some jute strands that I've cut, and I'm hot gluing them on. I think that is the easiest way to do this. However, this hot glue is not going to work. I need to break out the big gun, so I'll be right back. Okay, I broke out the big gun. This is so much going to make this project go so much easier and so much faster. So again, all I'm going to do here is just hot glue a whole bunch of strands of jute to the bottom end of this. And when I cut my strands, I did cut them way long because I knew I was going to want to, trim it all up to make them even. So I'm going to go ahead and get these glued all on, and I do glue them all the way around, and then I glued a second layer on top of the first layer. I got about halfway into gluing these strands on and realized, oh, shoot, I really wanted to stain these spindles. So I stopped what I was doing halfway through. I got that first layer of jute glued on and then stopped halfway through and took just a couple of minutes here to stain these spindles. And I'm just using some, I believe this is Waverly Antiquing Wax to do this step. Okay, y'all, so I got the spindles stained, I got all of jute put on, I got 2 layers of jute put on, and then I sat and individually unraveled every strand of that jute to really fluff this out. Now I'm just going to come in with this little comb and kind of brush out all of the excess. As you could see, quite a bit came out. Now I'm going to go ahead and even all of these strands up. So I just bundle the whole thing into my hand at about the length that I think I want it and give it a little cut. And just like that, y'all, we've got this darling little broom. Now, something I forgot to film because I forgot to hit record on my camera. I did wrap the top of this with the top of that first one with some wire. I liked the way it turned out, however, I did end up changing it. So I also wanted to create a second variation of this, which I'm going to do really fast, obviously. And so I'm just using some burlap ribbon to do this. I wrapped it around in 3 layers and then again sat and unraveled all of this burlap to create a little broom effect. And again, once that was done, I kind of fluffed it all up and then gave it a quick little haircut. Okay, y'all, so I really love the wire wrap around the top of the broom. I really do. And I'm not sure why I ended up taking it off because, it's one of those things where you second guess yourself. And then after you do it, you're like, oh, I liked the first version first, but it was too late to reverse. So my second idea here was to, instead of wrapping this with wire, I came in with just some really pretty lace ribbon and wrapped both of them. I do think the wire looked really cool, but the lace looks really cute as well.
Well, if you ask me, I think we put our creative magic to really good use today, and we whipped up some absolutely darling designs. I love how each and every one of these turned out. I'm quite pleased with them all, and I'm excited to set them out. I think our pumpkin ghosts turned out absolutely darling. They are so much fun. They're so whimsical and playful and cheerful all at the same time. So I'm looking forward to putting those on my front porch for Halloween. I think our art turned out great. It's a lot of fun. I think you could get really creative with this and just the sky's the limit. You could do so many fun things with the idea and the concept. Our little clay ghost on the arched frame turned out super sweet. I just think she is really darling, and I'm calling her a she ghost. I think she's darling. In fact, I like her so much that she may end up sitting on my shelf throughout the rest of this month. I don't normally go all out for Halloween and do a bunch of decorating. Usually I just set some things out like the week of, and then of course on Halloween day. We get a lot of trick-or-treaters here, so I do like to make my front porch look fun and festive. So our little ghost pumpkins are going to be darling on the front porch. And then we have our little brooms. They're just fun. They're sweet. I think you could get really creative with these too. I think these would be cute just as a shelf sitter, or you could display them on a little bowl. You could do quite a few different things with them. You could put them, lean them up against a little cauldron or something. I just think they're kind of cute, and they're playful as well. So y'all are gonna have to let me know, out of all the designs that we worked on today, did you have a favorite? And if so, let me know what it was. I will see y'all in the next one. Until then, take care, and I will see y'all soon. Bye-bye, friends. Boo. More. Yeah, I think that makes sense, right? We're gonna go with it. Creating or whipping up the Halloween holiday. Is Halloween a holiday? I don't know. I guess it is. Oh. What do you think of my magic wand? It worked, and it helped us create lots of magic today, didn't it?